look for it. So with subclinical hypothyroidism, and this doesn't mean your labs are off. This just means you got this syndrome going on. We have a slowdown in metabolism, loss of energy, excessive fatigue, weight gain, even with extreme dieting. Memory and mood disorders, cold sensitivity, menstrual problems, constipation because everything's moving slower, generalized hair loss. We usually find people with thyroid disease where the outer third of the eyebrow is gone. That's you, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can help you. Generalized hair loss, thinning nails, depression. Of course you're going to be depressed if your metabolism is down. Everything is slow. I just don't feel good. There's something wrong with me. Well, it's usually something wrong with your doctor. So almost half the people with thyroid dysfunction are not properly diagnosed. I'm not making that up. Thyroid disorders are best detected early before they can trigger other medical problems. Okay? Think about thyroid always. Think about adrenal glands always also, because we can test that at home with an adrenal saliva test. You just spit in 4 test tubes throughout the day, because the adrenals are a major energy source. What I find in LA is most people have what's called adrenal fatigue, and I'll get into that a little later. Thyroid dysfunction is most often mistaken for a psychiatric disease. Nita, is that true?
That's true.
When the thyroid is overactive, it's mistaken for anxiety. So I have a lot of people come in, their heart rate's up, they're anxious, and guess what their doctor gives them? Benzodiazepines. Prozac too? You like that one better? Studies have found that even a slight decrease in thyroid function could increase cholesterol levels. So patients cannot know what their correct cholesterol is until their thyroid has been repaired. Nice. You know, you don't take a statin drug to find out how your thyroid is. You do things in the right order, and statin drugs, as far as I'm concerned, should not be taken by anyone. Insulin and obesity. I talked a little bit about it in the beginning. Insulin is one of the major keys in our life. Insulin and blood glucose control, we've got to do that as the very foundation of every program we do in health. If we don't keep our insulin low, we're going to have issues. How do we control it? I mentioned exercise, nutrition. Why is it so important to keep our insulin low? Excess insulin stores fat. Makes it very difficult to reduce body fat. You can exercise all day long, but if you're eating high glycemic index foods, which are foods that turn into sugar very quickly, your insulin has to go up to meet that and bring the sugar down. When the sugar goes down, what do you need to do? Because you don't feel good. You need more sugar. All right? Unfortunately, people think sugar is sugar. Sugar is in most foods. It's not in proteins or fats, but it's in grains, you know, bread, rice, all these things. How many people keep rice cakes next to their desk? Common. What does that do? Shoots the sugar way up, and it goes way down, then you got to reach for a cigarette to come way back up with a cup of coffee. Insulin increases silent inflammation. We can't tell when we're inflamed from high insulin, unless it gets bad. You know, it's called type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. It's called cancer. It's called heart disease. Insulin accelerates heart disease. Excess insulin shortens your lifespan. We now know that. That's fact. You want to lose 7 to 8 years of your life? Eat a lot of sugar. Pretty much guaranteed. Now, type 2 diabetes is not a disease. Type 2 diabetes is an eating disorder. So get that straight. If you've got it, it's an eating disorder that has to be dealt with. There's no one in my practice now that has type 2 diabetes. A lot came in that way, but it's easy to cure. So insulin also interferes with exercise performance because what does it do? It drops your sugar down. It drives the sugar into the cells. Decreases O2 transfer to muscle. Decreasing growth hormone. Who needs that? Adequate levels of insulin sensitivity support growth hormone action by reducing insulin-like growth factor binding globulin. Insulin also stimulates aromatase enzyme, which converts testosterone to estrogen. We don't want too much estrogen. Okay? We've got to trim down. Lipolysis, what is it? Breakdown of body fat into free fatty acids and glycerol. These are the absolute essential first steps in burning body fat rather than glucose for energy. We want to burn the fat in our body. As a lot of you know, there's 9 kilocalories of energy for every gram of fat versus 4 with protein and carbohydrates. We want to burn fat. It's a great source of energy. Insulin is the strongest inhibitor of lipolysis and prevents us from using our own body fat for energy. So when our insulin is up, the key is locked on the fat cells. It will not let the fat out to be used. Blood glucose, second strongest inhibitor of lipolysis. So why is it so important? Because poor blood sugar control causes glycation. This means that the cells in our body actually get surrounded with sugar. I forgot what it's called, but when you take food and you cook it with sugar, it's called, anyone know what that is? Got any cooks here?
Caramelization.
Caramelization, is that the term? Okay. That's what happens to our cells. And then we end up with something that is called age glycosylated end products. Our cells actually die from that, too much sugar. So when people get insulin up, diabetes up, what happens to their feet and hands? They lose sensation or they end up having pain. They get what's called a peripheral neuropathy. Okay? What's it from? The sugar enters the cells osmotically. It then grabs sugar to itself. It grabs water to itself. So sugar goes into the cell. It grabs water to itself osmotically. The cells expand and the nerves that it goes into actually start to die. It starts at the toes and works its way up. We also have something called oxidative stress. We've all heard of free radicals. Free radicals are just atoms or molecules that lose an electron. They become unstable. Our metabolism causes free radicals. Sunlight, UV, causes free radicals. The food we eat that's processed, the fats we eat, cause free radicals. So what do we need to do? Antioxidants. Very simply, antioxidants are electron donors. They're molecules that we eat. We can drink in ionized water. They're very high in antioxidants. And they donate the electrons to stabilize these molecules that have become unstable. High triglycerides, heart disease. Low HDL, the good cholesterol. High triglycerides to HDL ratio. Coronary risk ratio. High triglycerides to HDL and high insulin levels. If anyone wants to work on something, this is what they need to work on. This is the greatest thing you can do for yourself. You don't need to see a doctor. It's very simple. Buy less food. Buy more protein and vegetables. Buy all the expensive stuff in terms of protein, but not in terms of the packaged foods. We don't want the processed foods in us. So what is glycemic index? I mentioned this a bit. It was developed in 1981 as a research tool, and then it ranks the different foods. So we use sugar as the baseline, or the benchmark, which we call 100. Now, if someone drinks a beer, which I used to love, I think the level of beer, the glycemic index is around 120 or so. So I'd be better off taking a bowl of sugar and putting water in and drinking it than drinking a beer. Plus, beer has grain in it, which is not very good in terms of sensitivities in the body. So starchy foods have a high glycemic index. There are some fruits that are low glycemic, but a lot are very high glycemic, so you have to watch your fruit intake also. Berries are very good, they're low glycemic. So avoid spikes. Don't have your sugar going up and down all day because you're just going to be in a cycle trying to chase it to keep from getting headaches and feeling tired. Get enough protein, get enough vegetables. Vegetables are carbohydrates. People always say, protein and vegetables, where do I get my carbs from? Well, vegetables are carbohydrates. They're just low glycemic. This is the kind of fat that's the worst, intra-abdominal. That's the stuff underneath the muscle. None of it's any good. But that is actually like a little alien. It produces cytokines, inflammatory mediators that cause a lot of disease. It causes inflammation. Coronary artery disease, cancer, arthritis, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, and even aging. So I think the biggest key we can have is do what Hippocrates taught us. He said something like, food is your medicine, medicine is your food. Every great doctor that we respect has said the same thing. It's the basic core of any program for health. HGH. big buzz about it. Not too many people take it because it's extremely expensive. Part of the reason it's expensive